child, I was always excited to get a brand new movie. It wasn't necessarily because of the movie itself, but rather because I was excited to see what games would be on the DVD. Typically, in the early 2000s, DVDs would come jam-packed with loads of bonus features, which sometimes included games. Disney was notorious for this, including multiple games on almost all of their early to mid-2000s DVD releases, complete with custom animations specifically for that game. Here are just some of the multitudes of games that are out there.
Its all-new 30th full-length animated motion picture.
Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite movies of all time. As could be found on a lot of these DVDs, personality quizzes were a quick thing to throw together to add more content. In this one, the premise is you're having tea with Mrs. Potts, and you remind her of someone in the castle. Let's see who I get. I hope it's somebody cool like Belle. Sweet! I love Belle a lot. The main attraction here, however, would be the Break the Spell game, which spans both discs. It starts out on disc 1, where you're helping Chip out in Maurice's workshop by answering simple questions about some of the residents of the castle. You're then given a code to access the rest of the game on disc 2. The neat thing about getting here is you actually get a warning from the beast to stay away.
Go away and never return!
It's a really neat touch. Anyways, once you're in the castle, there's 3 basic parts to the game. The first portion is a Dragon's Lair-esque quick-time event where you move through a set path. The second portion is a question about the themes of a movie, offered by the Enchantress herself. The final portion is a simple quick minigame. My favorite portions of this were definitely the quick-time events, because it actually offered me somewhat of a challenge. Next, we move on to Lady and the Tramp. As seen on other DVDs, there's yet another personality quiz here. This time, however, all the questions are phrased as if you were a dog. Makes sense.
When playing at the dog run, do you lay around in the sun? Keep to yourself.
There's also an Adopt Your Own Dog game on this. Let's see how that plays out. Oh, you need something called Interactual Player. Well, let's install that and see how this works. Dang it. Well, from what I've read, it was just a link to a web page. Unfortunately, that web page has been lost to time. Moving on, we have a trivia game. Here, you can choose between one player or teams. With one player, it's just answering simple trivia questions. The real game here is the teams mode, where it turns into a full-fledged board game. You spin a dial, move the spaces, and answer questions to try and win. However, some spaces you land on may cause you to lose a turn or even a ribbon. This, by far, was the better of the 2 game modes, and would really be a lot of fun with multiple people who enjoy the rather niche subject of trivia about Disney dogs. Moving on to The Lion King, we have yet another personality quiz. This one really doesn't offer much other than being a basic personality quiz, so let's move on to the real star of the show, Timon and Pumbaa's Virtual Safari. In the first version, you can choose between either a boat or a jeep. No matter what you pick, you're in for a wild ride as you run into all sorts of wildlife or even stop at a fast food restaurant? This sure wasn't in the movie. Overall, this was probably one of the more enjoyable games, if you could call it a game. It's more of an interactive experience of the bunch, which brings us to The Lion King 1.5 brought back the Virtual Safari yet again, in what is probably my favorite of the Virtual Safaris. This time, it's themed around being a theme park ride, complete with references to Pirates of the Caribbean, the Haunted Mansion, It's a Small World, and the Matterhorn. Overall, I really enjoyed the theming of this one, and seeing all of my favorite Disneyland rides here. This wasn't the only game on the disc, however. One of the other games included was a version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, called Who Wants to Be King of the Jungle, complete with a green-screened Meredith Vieira. The game plays just like the real deal, with features like phoning a friend, 50-50, and asking the audience. The questions span all three of the movies, which really made no sense, since The Lion King 2 wasn't even out at the time. Finally, there's a hidden Mickey hunt, where you watch the movie, only this time looking for hidden Mickeys. It was a really clever idea, and I'd like to see more of that. The Lion King 2 continued the tradition of virtual safaris. This time, you're on the back of an elephant, exploring the wilderness. This was, in my opinion, the weakest of the bunch, though I really did appreciate the fact that the elephant was named Gertie, and Timon's bad jokes.
Hey, Pumbaa, do you know why elephants have trunks? Timon? Because they'd look silly carrying suitcases.
The beginning was kind of bland, but it does have a completely ridiculous ending, in which Timon and Pumbaa go clear into space. These games were just some of what I remember from my childhood, and it was a lot of fun revisiting them. It's kind of a shame that nowadays, you really don't see bonus features like this on modern-day releases, and with streaming services being so commonplace, you miss out on a lot of the fun, even if it was simple.